Meghan Markle is absolutely unraveling right now. And not quietly, not gracefully, but in full view of a world that seems to be watching every move, every reaction, every carefully controlled statement crumble under pressure. Because the one thing she tried desperately to stop has exploded beyond her control. Tom Bower's book Betrayal didn't just survive the backlash, it thrived on it. It climbed, it surged, it dominated, and now it sits at #1 on Amazon like a silent accusation she cannot erase. The question is no longer whether this book matters. The real question is, why did her reaction make it unstoppable?
I'm firstly grateful to them because they pushed the book up to #1 on Amazon. And secondly, I'm not surprised. I mean, for them, any criticism is always poisonous and damaging, and particularly from me. But I can assure you it's very well sourced.
This was never supposed to happen. Not like this. Not at this scale. Sources suggest she is furious. Furious not just at the book, but at how quickly the narrative slipped out of her control. Because once the public starts asking questions, once curiosity takes over, control disappears. And that's exactly what happened here. She tried to shut it down early, labeling it as lies, dismissing it as conspiracy, warning people not to believe it. But here's the twist. Those warnings didn't silence the noise. They amplified it. Why? Because when someone powerful says don't look, the world leans in closer. And suddenly, people weren't ignoring the book. They were searching for it, buying it, reading it, talking about it, debating it, questioning everything. Because controversy is addictive. And Meghan, whether she realized it or not, became the fuel.
From me, but I can assure you it's very well sourced from the person who heard it from the Queen's mouth. And it's true. I mean, that's the point. It is actually, unfortunately, true at the time.
But the real turning point, it wasn't just that she criticized the book, it's that she went after the man behind it, Tom Bower. She didn't just disagree, she attacked, called it deranged, called it conspiracy. And in doing so, she transformed a book into a battle. And battles attract audiences.
He has made a career out of constructing ever more elaborate theories about people he does not know and has never met. Those interested in facts will look elsewhere. Those seeking deranged conspiracy and melodrama know exactly where to find him.
Because here's where things get uncomfortable. Bower didn't retreat. He didn't apologize. He didn't soften. He stood firm, calm, confident, almost entertained. And that contrast, it raised eyebrows. Because when one side is reacting emotionally and the other looks completely unshaken, it shifts perception. People start wondering who's really telling the truth. Ironically, the more she pushed back, the louder the book became. Every denial became a spotlight. Every criticism became an advertisement. And just like that, Betrayal wasn't just a book anymore, it was the conversation.
They're scared of Tom Bower. They're scared of what he's going to report because they know it's true. They know there's truth to it. If it's just deranged and crazy and fixation and whatever, then just ignore it. The truth will bear out. Generally, people will ignore what they seem as or deem as sort of on a crazy end of the spectrum. But that's not what Tom Bower is doing. Tom Bower is being a journalist here and reporting the facts. And the facts terrify Meghan Markle especially. She can't deal with them. She has to live in her delusional fantasy, and she hates anybody who tries to break it.
And then came the moment that changed everything. Bower leaned into the chaos. He didn't hide from it, he embraced it, publicly stating that backlash is good, that controversy sells, that outrage creates curiosity, and curiosity creates demand. It was almost strategic, almost calculated, as if he knew exactly how this would unfold. And suddenly, the narrative flipped. What was meant to damage the book became its greatest strength. Within just days, it climbed to #1, not quietly, not slowly, but rapidly, aggressively, like something unstoppable had been triggered. And here's the part that makes everything feel intentional. Bower openly admitted that criticism from powerful figures is the best promotion an author could ask for. Think about that. Every public denial, every emotional reaction, it wasn't hurting him, it was helping him. And the more visible the backlash became, the more people wanted to see what all the noise was about. Now step back and look at the pattern. A book appears, it gets criticized. The criticism draws attention. The attention drives curiosity. Curiosity drives sales. Sales drive visibility. Visibility fuels more criticism. And the cycle repeats. Louder, bigger, faster. So was this just a mistake, or was it a perfect storm of reactions that played right into the book's success? Because right now, the silence between statements feels heavy, suspicious, like something bigger is unfolding behind the scenes. Meghan tried to shut down a narrative, but instead, she may have created one that refuses to go away. And the most unsettling part, this might only be the beginning. And just when it seemed like the storm couldn't get any louder, something even more unsettling began to surface. Not directly from headlines, not from official statements, but from patterns. Patterns that quietly pointed toward a much deeper unraveling behind the scenes. Because while the book was dominating public attention, another narrative was forming in parallel. One that didn't need dramatic headlines to feel explosive. It was about money, pressure, expectations, and the uncomfortable gap between what was promised and what actually happened. Tom Bower didn't just stop at the controversy of the book. He pushed further, suggesting that the real story wasn't just about reputation, but survival. And suddenly, everything started to feel heavier, more urgent, more fragile than it appeared on the surface. According to Bower, the grand plan that once looked flawless, leaving royal life, building independence, securing massive deals, may not be holding together the way it was supposed to. The deals with major platforms, the global attention, the carefully curated image of power and freedom, it all painted a picture of unstoppable success. But what if that picture was incomplete? What if behind the polished appearances, something was quietly slipping? Because critics have pointed out that some of those high-profile projects didn't deliver the impact everyone expected. Some ended early. Some failed to maintain momentum. And when expectations are set sky high, even a small drop feels like a collapse. And then comes the detail that changes everything. The cost of maintaining that image. Security, lifestyle, that massive Montecito mansion. All of it adds up, not gradually, not gently, but relentlessly. Millions reportedly just to maintain protection alone. And without the structure and funding that once supported that level of living, the pressure doesn't just exist, it builds. Quietly, constantly, like a ticking clock no one wants to acknowledge out loud. Bower paints a picture that feels almost uncomfortable to process. A shift from prestige to pressure, from control to uncertainty, from influence to the constant need to stay relevant. Because relevance in this world isn't optional, it's survival. And when attention begins to fade or shift, the response isn't relaxation, it's escalation. New strategies, new appearances, new attempts to regain the spotlight. That's where the international moves come in. Strategic, calculated, carefully chosen locations meant to recreate past success. Australia, for example, a place that once welcomed them with overwhelming enthusiasm. But here's the question no one can ignore. Is that same enthusiasm still there? Or has perception changed? Because reports suggest that the reaction now feels different, more divided, more skeptical. Petitions, criticism, questions about whether these appearances are genuine or transactional. And suddenly, what was once effortless admiration feels replaced by scrutiny. And scrutiny changes everything. Then there's the most explosive claim of all, the one that shifts this from public narrative to personal speculation. Bower suggests that if the current trajectory continues, Meghan may not stay where she is, that she could eventually make a move towards someone wealthier, more powerful, more aligned with the life she originally envisioned. It's a claim that feels shocking, almost unbelievable, but also strategically placed in a way that keeps people talking. Because once an idea like that enters the conversation, it doesn't disappear. It lingers, it grows, it spreads. And when you connect that to the financial pressure, the changing public perception, the constant need for reinvention, it starts to form a pattern, not a confirmed reality, but a possibility that feels just believable enough to keep people watching. At the same time, another strategy quietly takes shape, one that feels almost symbolic, the idea of returning, not privately, not subtly, but publicly, a moment of reconciliation, a powerful image beside King Charles III, because that image alone could reset everything, restore credibility, reignite interest, re-anchor their identity to the very institution they stepped away from. But here's the problem. What if that door isn't open anymore? Because Bower suggests that behind the scenes, resistance exists. Strong resistance, especially from Prince William. A divide that may not be temporary. A fracture that may not heal easily. And if that's true, then the entire strategy of reconciliation becomes fragile. Because without that moment, without that image, the attempt to reconnect loses its power before it even begins. And then comes the risk factor, the unpredictable element that could derail everything. The Invictus Games, which should be a positive, unifying event, could become complicated by geopolitical political tensions, protests, and public backlash. And if that happens, royal involvement becomes risky. Carefully calculated decisions replace emotional ones. And suddenly, the reunion that could have restored everything may never happen. Meanwhile, the attempts to rebuild influence continue. Appearances, events, high-priced experiences where access becomes part of the product. And this is where perception becomes dangerous. Because when royal identity starts to feel commercialized, the line between prestige and promotion begins to blur. And once that line blurs, public trust becomes harder to maintain. Even the details surrounding those events, the unfinished venues, the logistical concerns, the whispers of disorganization add to the narrative. Small details, yes. But in a story like this, small details don't stay small. They become clues, pieces of a larger puzzle that people are trying to solve. And just when you think the situation has reached its peak, another layer emerges. Titles, status, the future under a different monarch. Because while King Charles may choose caution, Bauer hints that a future King William could take a very different approach, one that is less forgiving, more decisive, and potentially irreversible. Now, step back and look at the full picture. A book that was meant to be dismissed becomes a global sensation. A response meant to control the narrative fuels it instead. Financial questions begin to surface. Public perception shifts, strategies evolve, relationships strain, and through it all, one thing remains constant: uncertainty. Because this isn't a story that feels finished. It doesn't resolve. It doesn't settle. It builds quietly, intensely, like something is still coming. And the most unsettling part, if Tom Bauer is even partially right, then this isn't just about a book anymore. It's about what happens next.